Welcome to this webinar about Hamish and Milo and the showcase of Netherton Primary School in Dudley. I'm Claire, I'm the author of Hamish and Milo, and I've got with me Lisa Ryall-White, who is going to share the Netherton story. She's the SENCO and the inclusion lead of Netherton. I don't know if you want to just introduce yourself, Lisa, and say a little bit more about you and your school before I take us into the presentation.
Yeah, so I'm Lisa Ryall-White. I am the SENCO at Netherton CofE, which is in central Dudley. I've been the lead here and the SENCO here for the last 5 years, and just sort of been on quite a journey within the school.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So we're going to take you through just a very brief introduction to Hamish and Milo, just what the program is and how it can be developed, and then to really showcase the experience and the story of Netherton CofE Primary School. So bear with me while I share my screen. Here we've got Hamish, our dog, and Milo, our cat. And they are very much the kind of the central characters, really, of Hamish and Milo, and who really enable the children to feel really listened to and heard and understood. And that's really at the kind of core of our whole approach. So Hamish and Milo is 10 week programs. Each of those on the screen that looks like a book is actually a 10-week program in a box with all the session cards and the resources you would need to run a 10-week program through an emotion theme. Our mission at Hamish and Milo is to absolutely support the children that are perhaps more vulnerable, the 1 in 5 children with mental health needs. But actually, we really believe that all children need support with their social emotional development to feel happier, heard, and connected. We want to really make sure that children have opportunities in small groups to really connect with their peers, to develop their sense of social connectedness, to feel that they belong, and also to have positive experiences, childhood experiences in schools. We provide the whole approach, we provide the programs, the training, we provide supervision and also resources, digital assessment tools to ensure that we can measure progress pre and post intervention program. I think one of our biggest missions for Hamish and Milo is to really support the pastoral leads, the SENCOs, the ELSAs, the TAs and mental health champions, who are really the ones that do this incredible work. We want to really promote them in the work they do. They are the ones at the front line, and we want to make sure that they have all the support they need, and then it'll be delivered better for the children in the long term. So, just a brief outline of the 10 themes of the program. You can see the key motions that we work on. So, Actions, Words, and Me really looks at conflict resolution. Celebrating Me focuses in on diversity and inclusion. Resilient Me really builds the relationships to help us aspire, to feel empowered, to be able to have a go at something when it's difficult, to be able to ask for help and develop really problem solving skills as well, and to be able to develop skills of being able to reach for goals. Calm Me Anxiety, really the neuroscience around anxious feelings and to support children with emotional school-based avoidance in particular. Sadness, we really look at children that really come to school that have deep embedded sadness sometimes and need that opportunity to even have permission to have the feelings that they're having. And we really look at creative ways to enable them with that. New Beginnings and Me looks at change, transition, often at the end of a year, but actually change can happen at any time and can feel overwhelming. Memories and Me, the light green one, is about loss and bereavement, and is a very sensitive program. Amazing Me really is our kind of baseline one, looking at self-esteem and supporting children to feel that they really matter and feel that sense of self-worth. My Friends and Me, of course, is friendship, but not just what makes a good friend, but also the challenges and how we navigate through the journey of friendship. And finally, the last 10-week program is Exploding Me, Strong Emotions and Angry Feelings. I'm going to pass on to Lisa now so that she can really take you on a journey of the programs that they have been able to embed within Netherton, their whole story of how they developed the resources and the implementation plan around it. So thank you, and over to you, Lisa.
Thank you. So just a little bit of context about my school. So at Netherton, we've got 35% of our pupils that are eligible for free school meals. We've got 28% of our pupils who are on the SEN register. with around 5% with an EHCP. But the over a quarter of our SEN register now is children with social, emotional, and mental health needs. So it was just what we wanted to do was find something that meant that we could support that growing number. Our school is also located in the lowest 5% of social demographic areas nationally. So we've got quite a mixed cohort of children, but also the theme of this growing number of children with SEMH needs. We can go on to the next slide. So our Hamish and Milo journey started almost 12 months ago now. So we've got this growing number of SEMH needs that we were noticing in schools, and we've got mixed resources that we were trying to use. We're trying to use nurture, we're trying to use lots of different things. And what we were finding, there was no real structure, there was sort of limiting tracking opportunities and limited progress in that sense, although the children really enjoyed going. So we were given the opportunity through the local authority to start the Hamish and Milo journey, where myself and two of my teaching assistants went on training online, which was really useful. It gave us a full picture of what we needed, and then all the resources came into school, and it really was a pick it up and go, which was exactly what my teaching assistants needed to give them the confidence to feel that they could execute what was already there. So we also initially we have motionals in our school, so we use those to help set up our groups, and we sort of looked at the needs of the children, looked at the abilities of the children, and in the spring term we sort of had 8 groups running of mixed abilities, and that developed then into the summer term where we were able to set up over 10 groups of children. Unfortunately, due to staffing, as we've moved into this academic year, I've managed to set up 8 groups. And with that, I've managed now to get regular check-ins with children and create a safe space as well. Because unfortunately, I went from 2 teaching assistants down to 1 teaching assistant. But it's very much been a journey, but a really positive one within our school. So what I'll talk through now is some of the programs that we've done. So Amazingly, as Claire said, is sort of one of the ones that they recommend you sort of start with. And for a lot of our children, it is about them not always having that self-confidence, that self-belief, and this gave them a real opportunity to celebrate who they were and realise that reflection, that ability to share and sort of really raise that self-esteem, which as we've gone through it then, go on to the next slide. So some of the positive outcomes that we managed to sort of observe and the staff have observed is this increased confidence and self-belief in the children within the classrooms. They're more willing to try, participate, put their hands up, wanting to start to share their ideas and thoughts. Initially in a small group, but I have to say that some of those children that did that Amazing Me programme really much earlier this year are now much more confident in the classroom. So it definitely has given them the initial to work in small groups. But now, as they've moved into their new classes, into a new academic year, that confidence within their classrooms, teachers really notice this sort of coming out of their shell, where these children would just maybe sit back, fade into the background a little bit, wanted now to starting to get a little bit of more confidence to take part. And with that came resilience and a sense of achievement. Once they realised they could do it, they were so much more willing to have a go, which then it meant that we've got chatty, engaged and enthusiastic children. And what we've tried to do with the Amazing Me programme is make it really creative, so that the children, when they go out, it is all about that talking, but actually all the activities very much mean that they're using all the skills that, their artistic skills, rather than just sitting and writing. And we found that the more creative that it is, the more positive impact that we've had. The next slide then shows some of the data that we've had. So obviously we've had it running through quite a lot of groups, and initially sort of a mixed group, but then we did put them more into sort of year groups. So sort of a year 1, 2, a 3, 4, 5, 6. So they were more a bit more of an age range really. And as you can see from the data, we've had some really, really positive and really, really big gains for some of the children in that. One of them on there does highlight that maybe a child didn't, has read, but I think it's important to understand that this can only is one of the things that we offer. And although we started on this journey to try and increase confidence, actually external factors at home, things that are going on in their lives, have meant that in this case it didn't necessarily work for every child, but we had such positive progress in the majority of children that I think that that's what you have to go for. It's never going to be a program that works for everybody, but what we found is, the odd child that hasn't maybe made the progress, what it's meant that we then looked at what else is going on. Were they in the right program? What did we need to look at next for them? So that's how we then used our data to be able to track what happened next to those children. And then the pupil voice, a big part of the programme is about getting the children's voice. And actually, what came out from the children is the bit that they liked working with others, maybe not people that are in their class. It gave them this chance to take turns, be creative, and a lot of them reflected on the fact that I can now put my hand up because I know I'm as good as the others, or because I know that we're all different, and that's okay. I can do this, somebody else can do that, but we can all work together. And some really positive feedback there from a range of children in lots of different year groups. So the Amazing Me programme has been really positive, and it's one that it sort of start with the children and have had running each term. The next programme that we found really beneficial was the Resilient Me. A lot of our children are very quick to give up, not wanting to sort of push themselves that little bit out of their comfort zones. Whereas the Resilient Me programme has really taught them that it's okay to face challenges, and it's how we deal with those challenges in our lives that has the biggest impact. And actually, the Resilient Me programme for a lot of the children was about them realising that they've just got to keep going, and it's okay to find it hard. It's okay to not get it, but it's not okay to give up. And that was a big theme that has come through the Resilient Me. And the Resilient Me is always good fun because there's lots of practical things in there, eating donuts without licking your lips, those sort of things that the children love, because it is just about, not giving up and keeping going. And again, some of the things that our staff had to say about the Resilient Me, which is on the next slide, was about that greater willingness to try. They didn't give up so easily. I'm not saying they didn't give up at all, but it was that, okay, I can have one more go before the head goes down, or one more go before we got an outburst. And that has had, again, we've seen with some of our children across the year now how much more confidence they've got with that, and how much how much more they're willing to have a go, and not so afraid to make mistakes. I think the other thing that we noticed was it not so dysregulated when things go wrong or when they can't do something. Quite often we get those big emotions that come with things that when it goes wrong, or they've not got it right, or they don't know what they're doing. So we've really worked in school about, alongside that, making sure the children have got the resources that they need within our environment. So then when things go wrong, we don't get the massive big outburst, but they can work through it slightly differently. But those big emotions are covered through the Resilient Me as well. So it's okay to feel like this, but this is how we need to deal with it. And also knowing more strategies that they can use themselves. And I think that's giving the children that independence. So many of the children here are very reliant on the adult support, or the things around them, whereas they don't always have that independence to think, oh, I'm in control and I can do this. And this is very much what this programme enabled a lot of our children to do. And also they were more willing to ask for help. Quite often they see it as a negative if they haven't got it, they haven't understood, they don't want to ask. But now it's that encouragement. Well, the staff don't know, the people don't know if you don't talk to them. So it's giving them that confidence to have a voice. And again, we've done it really practically, and the totem poles in this one have been a real positive, and they absolutely love making them, want to show them around. They're on display, and I think that creativity comes through again, but it is what has really helped is really helping the children. The data again for Resilient Me very much shows real positive. In this one, we did do slightly smaller groups than sort of six. I have tried to keep it at sort of 4 or 5, just because I think with the nature of what it is and with what some of the children are, that bigger groups are, just not so sure that we'd have got the same outcomes. But again, all of the children that have done this programme have had really positive. I haven't had anybody go back in this programme, because I think what it's built is that confidence in them. And as I say, this has been a really positive one, and the children loved it. the creativity element of it from the pupil voice on the next slide, was about the staff, because I think the staff really helped with that, and they, that relationship in all of these programs is really key. But it's that I've learned not to give up. I know I can keep going. I can always try my best, and I think it's getting those positive thoughts into their heads that when, even when those teaching assistants aren't in the classroom with them, it's almost like they're sitting with them going, oh, fine, you can try one more time, you can do that one more time. And the relationships there of celebrating the successes when they've done something, being able to go back to those staff at break time, lunchtime, or the teachers send them down, all the check-ins that we're doing has really been beneficial for these children with that, especially with not giving up and being proud of the fact that they've overcome a barrier during the day, which has been really, really positive, which has had a massive impact in school. The next one that we've used is Exploding Me. And this one is all we found to be a little bit tricky at times, mainly because of the nature of the children that you've got in this group. That, they are the children with those big emotions, those outbursts that we get in. But it's about giving them effective strategies to manage those strong feelings and realise that it's okay to have these feelings, but it's how we deal with them that is the more important really than it. So again, some of the things that we noticed were the fewer outbursts in class because they were given strategies as part of the programme to be able to do some of that self-regulation, which a lot of the children really struggle with. But sort of having a bank of those really helped in the classroom. They were more open to regulation and reflection time. And I think a lot of the time, especially it's something we had to reflect on as a school, is if you were sending them out for reflection time, you get a big emotion. So we developed in school sort of like a card that just says, I need some chill out time. And we're encouraging it for lots of the children because they're more open to going out there. Like, I can see that you're feeling like this, so just go and take 5 minutes. And the children, especially who have done this programme, are more willing to go, yeah, okay, I can feel it, I'm happy to go, rather than you try and send them somewhere to calm down and you end up with one of these massive explosions that just didn't help. So that's something that we've brought in across the school now, are our calm cards. And it just means I need time to chill. They know where they're going because we've got calm corners in each of our classrooms. So they know which teacher they're going to. 5 minutes, put the timer on. Once they're calm, 10, 15 minutes, they then go back. And that has helped a lot of the children. And I've already mentioned the self-regulation strategies. And I think what some of the children explain it very well is that to pause and stop. We don't need to give a reaction straight away. So, have a stop, have a think, walk away, stop, think, react. And I think that is very much something that we've had to build in, but the children are using that much more positively, especially on the playground and during PE, because we tend to find that these big emotions can almost be controlled and contained to a degree in the classroom because it's very regimented and very, very fast paced. But once they get that little bit of free time, that unstructured time on the playground, we're having a lot of incidents. But what we are finding now is some of these children saying, I need to get out of here, or I need 5 minutes of calm time. And that ability to do that in PE and lunchtime has been our biggest challenge, but also our biggest successes for some of the children. Again, with the data, we saw really positive data. With these groups, we found the mix of children was really, really important, but also that it actually worked in some ways in just pairs much easier, because otherwise you've got so many emotions coming together that it wasn't always very productive. So definitely smaller groups here, but some of the children had really good gains in that, in their wellbeing profiles, just because of that ability. They've learnt those strategies to be able to co-regulate. And the children in this group were really positive with their pupil voice on the next slide. Again, it's that creativity. I've learnt to calm down quicker. But I think one of our real success stories was the child that was in year 6 that said, he's learned it's okay to be angry, because he was feeling angry a lot of the time because he felt he was standing up for himself, and he was, he needed to get his point of view across. But his big thing at the end of it was that I need to do it in a respectful way. I need to use it for positivity. One of the sessions in Exploding Me is about how we can use our anger towards the right things, or if something in the local area, you want to speak to a council or an MP, or you want to put your point across, but it's about being respectful. And for him, the progress that we saw in having that respect and wanting to respectfully disagree, using some of our oracy skills as well, was really important, especially now as he's gone on to secondary school. He was one of ours last year, but also trying, working with other people who get it, because you've got this group of children that are all quite, have these strong, big emotions, but actually they all got it because they all feel in the same way, which, that was nice for them as well. And actually, it's okay to need to have time to calm down. It's okay to have that space and not just think I've got to be okay and I'm going to put it together. So the Exploded Me, although it's the trickiest one, I would say, that we run in school, is the one where, for those children that are part of that with those big emotions, we have had some really, really fantastic success stories as part of that. This was the one, New Beginnings and Me, is one that we ran in the summer term, for a lot of our Year 6 children who were becoming really anxious about moving on to secondary school. Once they found out where they were going in March, we had lots of children start to be a bit wobbly, a little bit, oh, I'm not ready for this. They realised they were going to different schools. And what this programme meant was that we were able to bring that our time at primary school to sort of a really successful end, but also make them, let them see that what those feelings that they were feeling were quite normal feelings, and new beginnings are really positive and really are the next step. You are ready on that journey, and that reassurance. And as I say, we ran a lot of these groups in the summer term, and some of the really positive things that we saw was this openness in discussing change, because they've all sort of had a bit of a bravado about, oh, it's going to be fine, or it's going to be like this, or I've heard that. But actually, when you started to get them to speak and reflect and discuss what they'd seen and what was going to happen, they then became that positivity and excitement, rather than that anxiety that we were seeing in a lot of them, which was then ending up in them getting themselves into trouble, or all the other emotions that came along with it. So that excitement, what's next, and look at what's out there. And also it then reduced that anxiety in so many of the children. And it was really creative, lots of talking, the winds of change, what's been really positive, what's going to happen next. And I feel that a lot of the children left here in the summer term really ready and really positive about their next journey as they moved into secondary school. Again, with the data, it was a little bit, with some of the data, it wasn't maybe as positive as we was quite expecting. But what I would say for a lot of these children that maybe didn't make that is there were other things going on. They were maybe going to schools on their own, or there were a lot of things that were going on at home. So some of that impacted then their sort of ability to sort of accept what they were doing and move on really positively. There were underlying factors for some of these children that just meant that it didn't quite work. But for the vast majority of the children, we had such positive feedback and positive results that we definitely look at running it again this summer term. And we've even mentioned doing it within year groups as well. The children that were saying, no, I thought, I was able to share my thoughts and nobody judged me. Because at first the TA said when she was doing it, they all just sort of looked at each other. But once one started talking, it then became a snowball, which I think one of them alludes to. Because once one started feeling it, it made me realise that that's how I'm feeling. And it then just cascaded down. That meant that we could all talk about it, but all realise we were feeling very similar. So that was a real positive. And actually the realisation that these worries are normal. I think a lot of them thought that they shouldn't be feeling that way, and that, well, they've got into year 6 and it's ready for them to leave, but they weren't quite, now they've accepted and understood why they're feeling that way. And it was okay to feel sad about leaving, but also positive about moving. So that New Beginnings and Me was really positive in that summer term. What we then looked at was what we sort of found in general with the programme. So I think one of the biggest things we found was this genuine bond with the teaching assistant leading the group. They really did buy into the programme and into the teaching assistants, and they were fantastic with them. They would just go and drop in with them at the end of the day and find out how they've been. And that relationships is really what made it. And I've got 2 fantastic teaching assistants that were running it. And now I've got one, and they are amazing, and they are the people that make it, and they're happy to work with the children, adapt what they're doing. The regular check-ins across the day was what we built in. That isn't necessarily part of the program, but was definitely something that the children needed. And it just made sure that they knew they've got somebody checking in, just a thumbs up, just a wave through the door. That seemed to really help them to generalise what they'd been learning in what was a nurture session, and then putting it across into their own classrooms. The children would seek out the support at break and lunch times, and what we started to offer was that the ladies, and even our teaching assistant that runs our sort of nurture group, Hamish Milo, she's based in her room at lunchtime, so the children know they can go and just have a chat and just to check in, and that was really positive. And that we found that we had less referrals to the external agencies for the nurse or reflections, just because we were able to control and put some strategies in place for those children before it escalated. So that's been really positive. And in the small groups, the children, the staff, and have all said they felt safe. Feel safer to share their ideas. They were more open to taking part and maybe letting their vulnerabilities show a little bit. They got to know each other better, and they liked being creative. And I think that getting to know each other has meant that on the playground as well, because they were mixed groups, that some of those children that are in year 6 do know year 4s, and that's helped with some of the relationships out on the playground. Of course, we have also had some challenges. Sorry, I'm just gonna have to get a drink. When we first did it, obviously we just went off our emotional and knowledge of the children. But what we very much found very quickly is that some of the groups, the vast, really wide range of ages didn't work so well, and the mix of abilities and the mix of SEND needs. So it is about careful planning and grouping and management of those groups, and thinking, well, yes, that can be a group of 6 because these children can work, but this might be better as a 2 because these children aren't working so well with other children, or we're going to have big emotions and big outbursts. So getting to know the children has been the absolute key to the success of the programme and the success of the groups. And also knowing that some of the children need more group or peer support, adult support. So, trying to pair up, sort of groups of children that can work together and support each other, because depending on their ability, their understanding, we've also they've needed that little bit of extra support. And then modifying some of the activities. The activities are absolutely fantastic in there, and you can do them as they come out of the pack, or you can make them as creative as you like. And we're finding that making them as creative as you can, getting the glue, the glitter, the paint, has definitely having really positive impact on the children. But I think the biggest part there was knowing the children, so we know whether they're going to be able to cope with this activity, or whether we need to scaffold it. Are we going to do it individually, or are we going to do it as a big group and all feed in? But as we've gone through, and as the teaching assistants have got to know the children better, that we feel like we're getting to a real positive point there now, where our groups are matched very well, and that is flourishing. And I think the other thing I think the way the TA saw it was, it's a pack and I can go with it, which it can. You can just pick it up, but that it does need to be planned and prepared in advance. And I think some of the stresses that we had at the very beginning was because we were trying to pick it up and then deliver it, but actually you needed certain resources, or we needed to have gone to the art company, or we needed to have done an order for some of the things. So definitely making sure that we weren't last minute. We've got it planned the week before, so we knew what was coming the following week, meant that we didn't have any of those last minute stresses, which meant the TAs were staying calm, and the groups then were able to really, really enjoy what they were doing. And also needing those visuals, the prompts, the hands-on materials, being aware of what the children had got in the classrooms to support them, and making sure those were just transferred into the nurture groups as well, because some of the children had visuals or now and next boards that we maybe hadn't thought about taking into the the nurture room with them, which then meant that they were maybe becoming a bit dysregulated in there. But we have managed now, the staff are really on board with it, and all of those little things. We have meetings with the teaching assistant. She knows the teachers do, so she gets to know the children. She meets the children before starting the programme, And then that has made it be a really, really positive experience at our school. And I think, sitting underneath all of it and the key to it all has been the relationships and actually, lovely, relationships are at the heart of the progress. And I think it really does, you need the staff buy-in to then ensure that you get the children's buy-in because you set that timetable up. I set that timetable up each term. I need the children to be sent by the class teachers at the right time to the right place to ensure that they're not missing out on, a session because they need to catch up. It's very much taken as this is part of the curriculum. This is their package within school. And if you've had to swap maths for the afternoon, but they've got nurture, well then nurture is also part of their curriculum and they need to go to it. So it is just, careful planning of that as well. I do try and avoid so that children aren't missing out on PE or forest school to then go to nurture because quite often those children are the ones that need the extra PE or the extra nurture. But that relationships is definitely the key to our success here at Netherton. And it's been a journey, and each time, I'm just looking now at getting those groups ready for after Christmas in the spring term again. Which children, which programs, what do we need to best support the children so the children stay regulated and are able to learn within our environment. So thank you for that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lisa. It's such a pleasure to hear the experience that you've had, the journey you've been on, and the challenges as well as the highlights is always really important for us to recognize, to improve, to develop best practice, and ultimately to just make a huge difference to the children. So we're really delighted to be able to share that journey with you. So thank you so much for your time. Okay, I'm just going to stop the record.